There are some aspects of this budget which I would like to definitely put before you all, particularly because you constitute the party, all of us in a way. You, every one of us constitute the party's catalyst who will go into the society to talk about what exactly this budget aims at. Before I get into telling you about those important aspects, I think it's for us once to go back to see what has been our ideological mooring. What is it that we've been talking up since the days of Jansang? What is it that we have all been constantly discussing within our party's internal forums? I guess it's all party karyakartas, right? So, what have we been talking about? What's our vision for India? And where is it that we were at odds with what was available in India for the last 60, 70 years? And I caution here the temptation of getting into some of the very embedded jargons. Now, this is not my budget. I'm probably setting the foundation to talk about that. As was said in the Lok Sabha, setting foundation before we speak on the budget. But I'm actually laying the foundation. So, what is it that we had lived in the sense of what economic framework did we have for ourselves? All of us have lived in an India with a lot of shortages. An India where even for basic things we had to queue up. An India where you had to register well in advance and telephone even was a luxury. A two-wheeler scooter about which we talk in today's terms, I heard some manufacturers tell me, just probably after the budget, that there are demands which are waiting, which they may take even one whole year to supply, because they are already full capacity and the demand is far higher than the capacity. This is a different kind of wait. But the wait earlier was, even to get a couple of thousand scooters outside would have been a big thing. You needed some uncles and cousins and some connections to get them. So, not to get into the details, you know what I'm trying to say. India of shortages. But India of shortages was almost policy made, man-made, call it what you want, where we did not allow industry to be able to do its own and maximize on what is the market force. More demand, more supply, better price, and so on. That wasn't available because we were living in a licensed quota Raj. And as a result, neither way demands met, nor was the economy flourishing, because more the activity, better it is. Not more the exploitation, but more the activity which is reasoned by the market because of the anticipation of demand and because of the capacity to supply. Now, people reveled in the thought that in 1991, post a very delicate situation that the Indian economy had gotten into because of the balance of payment crisis, we were compelled by both IMF and the World Bank to undertake certain reforms, whereby the economy had to be opened up, the restrictions through the licensed quota Raj were to be gradually removed, and that is why at that stage when we said, oh, India is opening up, we also knew that they were to be soon followed by Generation 1, Generation 2 reforms, which, for whatever reason, after the opening up of 91 with one or two milestones, the rest of it which were to follow and which actually had to strengthen that opening up hadn't happened. As a result, one attempt which was made during Manya Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time were also not sustained post that. So reforms were there to be talked about, reforms were there to be discussed in the Lok Sabha, saying you are more reformist, I am more reformist, and so on. But actually, the Generation 2 reforms and also subsequent reforms, which probably would have got categorized as 2.1, 2.2, did not happen at all. So that's one side of the story. The other, since Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, the way in which government was to withdraw from activities which were not essentially government's business, which were initiated then but couldn't really gain traction, again because of the duration, and by the time the systems were ready to do it, they were outside of power, and then the next dispensation couldn't really do a transparent process of it. It got muddied, and then it got probably even thrashed out by the courts to say, not this way, find a better way. So I've just sort of compressed a lot of things to say. And again, when Prime Minister Modi came into power in 2014, the question was, aren't you going to do that particular reform of the land, which was started off in 2013, started off in a very bad way, started off with contents which were not really saleable, if I can use that word. And as a result, when we tried doing something with it, it really couldn't pass through, also because constraints we had in the Rajya Sabha. But now what we have done, and why is this one any different? It is different because before I get into this, I'll also then get into the usual temptation of saying, but these are the critics who have said this about Prime Minister Modi's government between 2014 and 18, saying, oh, well, you were caught up in a certain socialist trap yourself, which is not true. It's not a trap. It's also not socialistic. I want all of us to have it clear in our head. I think you have very clearly referred to that one particular word, which we oftentimes forget to use, and also to say it may be used as a counter to socialism, but it's not socialism whatsoever. Antyodaya. If you didn't attend to Antyodaya, and if you're not faithful to Antyodaya, any amount of reform that you do, you would also probably hurt the most weaker and the poorer sections. So Prime Minister Modi consciously made sure that the basic needs of the poor were delivered, actually delivered. And that was the priority. So you had Ujjwala, you had Ujala, till today you have Swanidhi, which is recently come into being. Otherwise it was also looking at Mudra, you were trying to help out with the poor for any other assistance, helping out the SHGs, giving farmers the 6,000. So all these were not so much, oh, you went into that dead end of a road, which is socialism. Not at all. We have a commitment to Antyodaya. And where we succeed in Antyodaya is because we guaranteed and made sure. You explained how, when deadlines were crossed, when the generic drug distribution network that we established in the name of Jan Aushadhi. Similar is the way in which for other people-centric programs which we were to deliver, delivery and the last mile performance is the distinct difference between all those which were earlier in the name of welfare, in the name of socialism done, than the Antyodaya-driven approach to delivering for the poor and ensuring that delivery happens. Otherwise, why would in this budget I bring in another 1 crore people to be covered under Ujjwala scheme? We were confident we've achieved 8 crores. Now adding 1 more crore is not impossible. We can happily reach out to those people who need it. So there, the difference between a socialist approach to welfare state is largely on the larger idea of, oh, socialistic, oh, welfare state. We'll have to do it, and a lot of talking about it, but concrete achievement in the crowd. You can take n number of examples, even for that matter, Jan Dhan Yojana, financial inclusion for poor. After bank nationalization, in 1969. The whole idea was to reach out to the people, poorest of the poor, in the rural areas through your nationalized banks. But no, actually the number of people who were to be connected weren't connected at all. You had a sample of about certain number of lakhs or probably a crore of people who could, the exact number is available for you all. But what we have achieved since after 2014 September in Jan Dhan Yojana is actually reaching out, making financial inclusion possible. So all these are steps towards Antyodaya, and we proved repeatedly because of the Prime Minister's understanding of how governance works, last mile connectivity has to be the final reckoning point. That was proven in Jan Dhan. That was proven in the way Aadhaar reached. That was proven in the way through mobile linkages of services. And then, therefore, the JAM Trinity, therefore, the way in which Swanidhi, Mudra, everything was brought in. Now, if that is ensured and that is on ground, then move over to talking about reforms. Moving over to talk about reforms is not the way in which we are extricating the economy from the license quota Raj, but it is also our belief that we need to trust our own businesses. We need to trust our own Indian economy. We need to trust our own tradesmen. We need to trust our own small and medium units, which are the backbone of this country, which again fits with the Indian philosophy, our own ideology, the ideology which was also in sync with our forebear, who's the Jansangh, that from the beginning, we were not happy with this imported ideology. Socialism was an import from the USSR model. Command structure from center, plan everything for the states, one size fits all. So what's good in Karnataka is also equally good in Mizoram. Cannot be. But that's how it happened over the decades. And at that time, the so-called federalistic principle were not so much in discussion because it was one party all over. At the same time, equally, the socialism and glorified picture of India can develop only under this model, which actually did not fit with our own culture. With rampant prevalence of self-made people, people contributing on their own, who were not propped up by the institutions of the government, you needed to have a philosophy which will suit us. And that is why what worked out in the name of reform is actually extricating from that license quota Raj, but not really pinning it down to something which is truly yours. Whereas what we are doing now is saying, look, trust our people, trust our own. That is why even in this budget, there is one, I quickly jump to one of the features, where we have ensured that MSMEs or any business in the GST regime will not even need a certification from a chartered accountant. He can just self-certify and put it into it. And that's the end of the story. So if that idea, and Honorable Prime Minister repeats it, wealth creation is not wrong. In fact, we need to honor wealth creators. Otherwise, where are you going to generate this money for your Antyodaya? And without that stream of honorably producing, selling, trading, exporting, and paying due taxes, that money which is required for your Ujjwala, for your farmer, is not going to happen. So why pretend that the welfare state is going to be from money, God knows from where? These are chores, or these are people for whom everything has to be done without being accountable. Everything has to be done for the Antyodaya. There's no question about it. We'll have to do it. But it has to be funded through the honest business, and that business paying it on the basis of a certain kind of understanding that this economy will have to be sabka saath, sabka vikas. See, that is the grounding principle, and therefore this whole approach of, oh my God, you're selling the family silver, even that's absolutely wrong. What is happening is there are institutions which have been in all kinds of institutions for the government to run. Is it possible? We tried our best. Several governments have tried their best. Several governments, irrespective of the parties' names. But once you were not able to But you're pouring more and more of taxpayers' money and not keeping up on efficiency. How can you justify that? If omission and commission are two different nature of bad governance, you commission with a malified intent or some kickbacks and corruption is happening there, that's wrong. Omission, where you're not able to justify the money going into proper use, even that's, I would think, impossible for you to justify. And therefore the principle of, we are not selling off just one or two like that, randomly picked up, but we state the philosophy and the policy for it. And that is why this time you had the policy on public sector enterprises and their disinvestment programs and so on, clearing the way this budget does for the next 10-15 years of understanding what this government wants to do, what Government of India wants to do. If the economy has to be robust, many of these units will have to be running. They can't be stagnating, nor can they be closed. If government is not able to run it and it is stagnating as a process, would it not be better for it to be given off to somebody who can justifiably run? Because the produce from that unit is still required in the Indian economy. So you want the steel, you want the coal, you want the electricity, you want the many other things which government is doing, but unfortunately it has limited resource to go on in giving us capital infusion. So if there are Indian citizens, if there are groups of Indian citizens, if there are groups of employees who can take it up and run it profitably, wouldn't the economy benefit? Those are the kind of thought, I think, Prime Minister Modi has spent a lot of time listening to a lot of business leaders, economists, experts who have been looking at governance for a long time. And as a result, this budget, post the pandemic, was taken to be two things. One, you stimulate the economy, stimulate by pouring the money into areas which have great multiplier effect. Multiplier effect because that's where the money which is invested has a big bang impact. It can give jobs, it can have a virtuous cycle of demand creation and also therefore better output. We chose that route because not just this year, money put on a project this year or money put for an infrastructure this year can have an impact of the next couple of years. So the stimulus can be sustainable. Stimulus can be sustained. The other is the direction for the next 15-20 years so that India is seen as a robust economy, policy-driven economy, not carrying the baggage of socialistic era economy, and therefore it will create a greater buoyancy, meet up with the expectation of our youth, and say what's possible elsewhere with a free system is possible here too, because our people have great ability, skill, and entrepreneurship with which they can go forward. With this, I just wanted to give you the background. I'm not getting into the details. I'm sure you'll ask me. I'll conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for that wonderful visualistic speech on Atmanirbhar Bharat. For sure, India will be a fat trillion economy under the leadership of Sri Narendra Modi and your leadership, ma'am. Thank you. Now the session is open for Q&A. I request Karan Jivaji to please coordinate and moderate the session.
A very good evening to everybody. So we are going to have a couple of ground rules. Be brief with your question. State your name before you ask your question.